Welcome, my name is Srinivas Kirtan Reddy and I am pursuing MTech from WIT University. I would like to explain about magnetic resonance sensing, and one of its main application is magnetic resonance imaging. So now our topic is magnetic resonance sensing and imaging. So what is the basic physics behind magnetic resonance sensor? It's very simple. First, we have a magnetic material and we have an excitation field which is imposed on the magnetic material, and then we have a bias magnetic field which is perpendicular to the excitation field. So when these bias magnetic field and excitation field are operated in resonant frequency, the magnetic material exhibits a property of emitting a magnetic field. So this magnetic field is recorded. The emitted magnetic field is recorded by a detection coil. Then the design of the sensor. How do we design the magnetic resonance sensor? It's very simple. It's a basic LC circuit, LC resonance circuit. So by changing the bias magnetic field, we are going to change the self-inductance of the coil. Hence, we can adjust the resonant frequency of operation. What happens when this bias magnetic field changes? How does this self-inductance change? It's very simple. When the bias magnetic field is increased, the dynamic permeability of the medium will fall. Hence, the linear inductance, the self-inductance of the coil varies. So this is the main principle behind designing the sensor for magnetic resonance sensing. So the main application of magnetic resonance sensor is MRI technique, magnetic resonance imaging. So who found this technique? This was found by two people, Bloch and Purcell. But these two persons, they have just laid the foundation for magnetic resonance imaging, but they were not able to explain the way of imaging non-metallic objects, which is done by nuclear magnetic resonance NMR, which was used to generate images from human bodies and other cellular objects. So what is this magnetic resonance imaging, and how do we apply magnetic resonance imaging for the present MRI scans we use to scan the human body for defects in the organs? The main principle is that we use protons, the magnetic moment of the protons. We have atoms in our body. We have hydrogen atoms which is present in the water molecule H2O. We have two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. What happens here is hydrogen, when it is taken individually, it has one proton. So the nuclei has only one proton. So in order to consider the proton, we'll simply consider the hydrogen atom in our body. So when this hydrogen atom is used for incidence of excitation field and bias magnetic field, and the alignment of these protons is used to sense or to image any organ in the body. How is this done? And what is this alignment of protons? How was it previously, and how are we changing this alignment? So any atom consists of nucleus and electrons. Neutrons. So nucleus consists of neutrons and protons. Neutrons are neutrally charged, they have no charge, but a proton has a charge. So what happens is a magnetic field. So a proton is considered to be, so the atom is considered to be, any nuclei is considered to be spherical. It consists of a proton. So the surface of the atom has a positive charge. Hence a magnetic field surrounds the nuclei. Hence what happens is a magnetic moment creates in a direction which is given by right hand rule. When we align the fingers in the direction of magnetic field, the thumb represents the direction of magnetic moment. So every proton has a magnetic moment. But basically, why is this not? Why any water molecule is not exhibiting a net magnetic moment? It is because the protons by default are aligned in such a way that their magnetic moments cancel each other. So what is our aim? Our aim is to align these protons in a specific direction. We use this by just applying a magnetic field parallel to the magnetic moment and perpendicular to the field of the nuclei. Once again, parallel to the magnetic moment of the proton and perpendicular to the magnetic field that surrounds the nuclei or the proton. Hence, what happens is all the protons align in same direction along the applied magnetic field. Some protons, however, we can see in this diagram, in the second diagram, in the lower diagram, initially the protons were randomly aligned, and when application of magnetic field, they were aligned in a single direction. But some protons, a minimum number of protons, are aligned anti-parallel to the specific direction. These protons are said to be of having high energy. So these protons by default in our body were having high energy, hence they have aligned in opposite direction. And the remaining three protons which are aligned upwards, they have low energy. What is this Larmor equation? And what is this precession frequency? What happens? Every proton, every nuclei is it's as simple as uh, what is a proton revolves around the nuclei. So it is as good as a solar system. So all the planets surround around the sun, but sun is stationary. Here, in the same way, proton is not assumed, the nuclei is not assumed to be stationary. It will be rotating at a certain frequency, which is called precession frequency, given by omega naught. Hence, how is this omega naught determined? How is this controlled? It is just proportional to the strength of applied magnetic field, which is B naught. And what is this proportionality constant, gyromagnetic ratio? It is simply the frequency attained due to application of unit magnetic field. It is usually 42.5 megahertz per Tesla for a proton. So hence, as we previously described about magnetic resonance sensor, there we have the bias magnetic field and applied magnetic field. Hence, here the bias magnetic field is B naught, which controls the frequency of precess of the proton. So this is the basic principle, magnetic principle. So what happens is along the south, so magnetic lines of force travel from north pole to south pole, and the magnetic moments are shown. The protons are shown by a small magnets. So these magnets will align in the direction of the magnetic field. Next, let us consider a single proton. So there is a charge on the surface of the proton, thus creating a small current loop and generating magnetic field. A static current exists which generates a magnetic field, which is given by right hand thumb rule. So when we align the fingers in the direction of magnetic field, we get the moment, the magnetic direction of the magnetic moment. So the proton also has mass. Hence, when it is revolving with a process, when it is carrying a process with a particular frequency, and as it has mass, it even has an angular momentum, J. So here we can see some protons are aligned in the direction of magnetic field, and some are aligned anti-parallel, which are of high energy. The low, if we can see two protons are aligned downwards, so which shows they are of high energy, and some protons are aligned upwards, which are of low energy. So this is the precession frequency. It is nothing but the presses per second. That means the revolutions made along the line of magnetic field, about the line of magnetic field by proton per second. So it depends on the strength of the magnetic field, which is given by the Larmor equation. Omega naught is equal to gamma b naught. So this figure shows four people which are aligned parallel to the direction of magnetic field, which are of low energy, and some people have high energy. They can make some movements which require high energy. So they are less in number. So these three people which are coming backward, which are in the back to the four people, or aligned opposite. So they have high energy, so they are moving in that way, they are spending high energy. So net magnetic moment, here we have three protons in the direction of aligned along the direction of magnetic field B naught, and three and only two which are minimum aligned anti-parallel. So the net magnetization is obviously upward. So which is given by M is equal to C into B naught by T. So what is this spin system? So this is as good as this, just as said in the previous slide. So the minimum number of protons are in low energy they are in high energy, and a maximum number of protons are with low energy. And what is this resonance and what is this radio frequency pulsing? Basically, two things happen to resonating protons when RF pulse is applied. So they absorb energy and phase coherence. What is this absorbing energy and phase coherence? So in order to align the protons in a magnetic field, so we have to apply some energy. So that is applied by the excitation field. And what does this radio frequency does? What it will do is, it will push a 50% of protons. It will simply push 50% of protons from low energy to high energy, such that the net magnetic moment is not longitudinal but it is transverse. So this requires some energy. So this energy is supplied by the radio frequency pulse, which is absorbed. That energy is absorbed by the protons to change their spin from low energy to high, the direction of high energy. And what is this phase coherence? Phase coherence is simply, we can, by applying energy, we can just push the protons downward, but all the protons are not in same phase, they are in different phase. So there is no net magnetic, we can't assess the net magnetic moment in which direction it is. Hence, what we do is, we apply a rotating magnetic field which is of a sine wave, the radio frequency pulse of sine wave with 120 degrees phase shift. Usually, if we consider a rotor, a magnetic rotor, we apply rotating sinusoidal magnetic field to the stator. So that is of each phase is separated by 120 degrees. Hence, when this phase shift when one phase which is of 120 degrees phase shift is applied to a proton which has a phase shift for 120 degrees, it will just align to 240 degrees, and once again when applying 120 degrees it will align to 360 degrees. So this is called phase coherence. So we are applying a rotating sinusoidal magnetic field with three phases, with each phase separated by the angle, the phase shift between the protons. This will align all the protons to come in the same phase. This is called phase coherence. Hence, we get a resultant transverse magnetic moment. In this diagram, let us see the figure A. Here, the net magnetic moment is longitudinal. longitudinal magnetization, because the maximum number of protons are aligned in the direction of z plus a positive z direction. So here what we do, we just apply in the figure B. What we are doing, we are applying a high energy radio frequency pulse such that the protons which are of low energy, which are aligning in the positive z direction, 50% of them are moved downward. Hence what happens to the net longitudinal magnetization? It will start decreasing. We can see the arrow starts, we can see the arrow which is descending. Here the arrow is longer, which represents the net longitudinal magnetization. It starts falling when we apply a high energy radio frequency pulse. And what happens when 50%, when nearly, so the first figure, the figure A and B, illustrates the absorption of energy and the fall in net longitudinal magnetization. And the second figure, second part of the presentation, we have two other figures. In this we are applying a sinusoidal wave to just align all the protons in a single direction, such that we have a net transverse magnetization. We can see a line which is along the direction of y, which shows the transverse magnetization. Hence, when all these magnetic moments starts moving to single phase, this longitudinal magnetization starts falling slowly and becomes zero, and this longitudinal magnetization is obtained as transverse magnetization. So hence that frequency of radio RF is in resonance with the Larmor frequency. So hence this is magnetic resonance imaging. So this figure shows a dot diagram which shows low energy protons jumping to the alignment of high energy protons on application of energy. So this is what we have shown earlier. We have all the protons aligned in different direction, and here we have all the protons in phase, and some protons, high energy protons, in the negative y direction. So what happens when 50% of protons are pushed downward, and when all the protons which are up and down are in phase, we get a net transverse magnetization. In this diagram, all the protons are in phase, but still we have a net longitudinal magnetization due to difference in number of protons along positive z and negative z. So in order to make this arrow zero, we need to apply high energy radio frequency pulse to push 50% of these protons downward. Hence we have zero longitudinal magnetization and net transverse magnetization. So what happens after after this alignment and when we obtain this transverse magnetization, next what is happening? So at this resonant frequency, with this transverse magnetization, the protons or the nuclei will start, these protons will start emitting energy, emitting a radio frequency pulse. So this here we can show once again the high energy proton jumping to low energy level, which is called a relaxation. Here we can have energy emitted. We can see the energy emitted. We will record this energy using some magnetic coils which will record this energy. So this is called spin lattice relaxation, which is T1, which is called T1 relaxation or longitudinal relaxation. So this is why this is called a spin lattice relaxation. which spin lattice relaxation means what happens is, as we have pushed some protons from low energy level to high energy level, we have equal number of protons initially. But what happens, due to this high energy, these protons can't be there for much time and start aligning in the previous direction, the usual direction. So then we'll have some energy emitted to the surroundings. uh, so this is called T1 relaxation or spin lattice relaxation. We have another type of relaxation which is called spin relaxation. Here we can see the spin lattice relaxation. Uh, Here see this proton initially it is aligned. See, these protons starts as they start aligning in the longitudinal direction, in the positive z direction, the magnitude of net longitudinal magnetization starts increasing gradually. So when all protons are aligned upwards, we have the initial net longitudinal magnetization, which was usually present before application of the radio frequency pulse. So here we can have spin relaxation, which is also called T2 relaxation. What is this T2 relaxation? We have applied a radio frequency pulse to make them coherent in phase. So we have just initially we have all these along a single phase, in a single phase. So they can't be stable in that alignment. So they start relaxing in their usual phases, initially in which phase they were. So this relaxation is called T2 relaxation or spin relaxation. So here what happens? So the transverse magnetization, as spin relaxation starts happening, the longitudinal magnetization starts falling. See, sorry, this is the transverse magnetization. This transverse magnetization starts decreasing. So we can see in this graph the transverse magnetization with respect to time. It's just the net transverse magnetization start falling as spin relaxation starts initiating. Okay, how do we use these relaxations? How do we accentuate these relaxations to determine an image? So it is just determined. It depends on the which material we are imposing, whether we are imposing on water molecules, that means tissues, or fats. So usually fats have uh, a less relaxation time, and usually water molecules have more relaxation time. So this duration and interval, so this RF pulsing means it just senses the pulses that was emitted from the protons. So depending on the duration and interval, we can just accentuate which type of relaxation it is and which type of material, whether it is a tissue, a water molecule, or a fat. Next, so that is what we have said previously. Liquids have long relaxation times. So we have long T1 and a T2, whereas fats have short T1 and T2 because they are of high energy and they can't be in that. So they have what to say, the tightly packed carbon and hydrogen atoms. Fats usually have carbon and hydrogen atoms. They're tightly packed, so they can't be in that position. They will be unstable. So they have short relaxation times, T1 and in T1 relaxation and T2 relaxation. So how do we design this MRI machine? This is the heart of our subject. So we are actually designing a sensor for this magnetic resonance imaging, which is based on magnetic resonance. So our MRI is basically a sensor. How do we build this sensor? It's very easy. It has a main magnet which is used for excitation magnetic field, and we have a gradient coil, and we have a radio frequency coil. And let us see the functions of each of these coils. So this shows a cross section of MRI sensor, which has a main magnet in the outer radii, and we have a shim coil a gradient coil, and finally a radio frequency coil, which detects as well as radiates energy, which detects the emitted energy as well as which we use RF to align the protons in required magnetic to determine or to obtain the longitudinal magnetization or transverse magnetization by energy transfer and phase coherence. So what are so let us see this block diagram. This block diagram consists of main magnet which is of high radii, which firstly includes gradient coils, and then it includes RF coils. What are these gradient coils? Gradient coils are usually, if a human body is sent to this uh, machine, if a human body is sent into the machine, we need to if we need to scan a particular area or particular frame of a human body, we need to point out the location. This is done by these gradient coils. These gradient coils will just maintain a gradient of magnetic field. That means non-uniform magnetic field along the length, along the breadth, and along the cross section of this machine. So hence we can determine the position of any atom or tissue, or tissue or any frame, any two-dimensional frame or three-dimensional point using X, Y, Z gradient coils. So this is the purpose of gradient coil. And RF coils, radio frequency coils, are usually used to transfer energy to the protons as well as record the energy emitted from the protons. So this is controlled by RF electronics. So we can have a bidirectional system here, record as well as send energy. And then we have pulse sequence computer, which is controlled by a computer, and we have image reconstruction. That means we need to encrypt and we need to form an image using the data sensed by this RF electronics, and this is sent to console, and here we write a program what to do. We can see the output from the peripherals like monitor, and we can edit the program using input peripherals like keyboard and other programming interfaces. So these are the usual static magnetic fields used, and we usually use between 5 the magnets use magnets which have a magnetic field between zero point 0.5 to 1.5 Tesla. So usually we can use two types of magnets: permanent magnet and electromagnet. Permanent magnet, by default, it has a magnetic, it can generate a magnetic field, and an electromagnet, which is usually a magnet, a ferromagnetic material which is wounded with electric electric coil which carries a current. So these are the specifications of specifications and design of the superconducting, what to say, the superconducting magnets and a resistive magnet. And what are these volume coils? And let us see the different types of coils present in this MRI machine. First is volume coil. These components surround the body that has to be imaged. Usually we have gradient coils. So volume coil is usually used to record energy from, or to create a magnetic field for a particular volume of the body. This is usually a volume coil. Now what are the shim coils? Shim coils are used to convert non-homogeneous magnetic field to homogeneous magnetic field, which means though we have a magnetic gradient along the length of the machine, there will be a varying intensity of magnetic field from the outer radii of magnet to the center of the magnet. So which causes a gradient along the other perpendicular direction. So this is not required. We are just using two coils along the length to create a gradient along the length. So this is nullified by shim coils, nullified or can be controlled by shim coils. So what is this imaging gradient magnets? So we used to vary magnetic field in a known or a required manner. So each point has a slightly different rate or an Larmor frequency, because uh, when gradient means variation in magnetic field, we know that Larmor frequency is proportional to the applied magnetic field. So every point along this gradient have different rate of precision and hence Larmor frequency. So what is the use of this gradient? Slice selection. We can select a slice, which means a two-dimensional area, which consists two gradients x and y, and uh, we can use frequency encoding and phase encoding. So what is this phase and frequency encoding? Frequency encoding, so every person, so let us consider a slice of a human body which is present at a length L, or let us take that length along Z direction, and we have an XY plane perpendicular to the direction. So we are usually considering here, let us consider the XY plane which has X gradient and Y gradient. So let us consider an MRI image here with a 3 by 3 matrix. So each area, that means each identified or individual block is said to be a voxel. So the moment, the dipole moment and the precision frequency usually are same when there is no gradient along x and y, but we can vary the phase as well as the frequency by gradient coils along any direction. So this is called phase and frequency encoding. So let us consider along the direction of y. See, if we have a gradient coils in positive, in the upper positive y and lower to this voxel, let us consider a gradient along the direction of y. So in the upper portion, the usually the magnetic field is high, hence it shows high phase encode gradient. That means high phase or high frequency. So we can also control the phase as well as the frequency. Frequency depends on magnetic field, which is the strength of the magnetic field, which depends on the gradient point. So this is usually a Y phase code gradient. So like this is usually X grade. X in the direction of X. If we consider the the first column of this matrix, we have low gradient, so that means low magnetic field along this X, and as we move along the direction of X, the magnetic field starts increasing, hence the phase as well as frequency starts increasing. So what usual bandwidth do we use for this radio frequency encoding as well as detection? There are actually two bandwidths used. So we actually use 1 kilohertz, so which affects the slice thickness, and we usually use 16 kilohertz to minimize signal to noise in images. So what is this basic MRI technique? We have already discussed basic MRI technique means, so we just place a patient in a uniform magnetic field. So we just displace the equilibrium magnetization vector with RF pulse and observe the signal as the magnetization vector returns to the equilibrium. That means the net. So actually we consider time of relaxation, and we consider usually, and we also consider the what to say the angle deflected. We consider the time as well as we consider the energy radiated. So we use this to detect particular portion of the object. So this is the basic MRI technique. So we're just converting the longitudinal magnetization. We are applying a RF pulse perpendicular to this, and we are applying a transverse magnetization with a particular precision. So when this RF is removed, signal will decrease and amplitude of MR signal will also decrease. So this is the basic principle. And imaging, this is used magnetic. Uh, so what are the characteristics of an image used to sense the type of cell or the type of tissue in the object? So when high signal indicates white, high magnitude signal indicates white, and low magnitude signal is indicated by black, and intermediate signals, which is a grayscale, which is actually the conversion of white to black is usually grayscale. So intermediate images are in intermediate energy signals are in a gray scale. So this is the usually the contrast mechanism. So we use usually the direct way of contrasting is extrinsic parameters. That means the direct way we just sense the echo time and the repetition time and a flip angle. What is echo time, what is repetition time, and what is flip angle? Let us see in the next slide. So usually these are extrinsic parameters, and what are these hidden parameters or derived parameters? We have to derive some properties by measuring this TR, TE and flip angle. These are T1 recovery, T1 relaxation, which is usually spin lattice relaxation, and T2 spin relaxation, and proton density. We can measure the proton density, and we can measure the flow and apparent diffusion coefficient. So usually this TR, or what to say, the repetition time, and we have, and when we consider a T1 weighted image, so we have actually two types of relaxations. So in each relaxation we have energy emitted by these protons, and how can we differentiate a tissue and a fat molecule using a T1 weighted image and T2 weighted image. So these are called the contrast mechanism for T1 recovery and as well as for T2 recovery. So what are the differences in weighted image of T1 as well as T2? So let us see. So T1, let us consider the T1 weighted image, which is spin lattice relaxation image. Spin lattice relaxation image. Here usually we have a short repetition time, which is 300 to 600 milliseconds. So we have a short TR, and we have. So what is repetition time? Repetition time is just time from application of one RF pulse to the application of the next. This is just a simple definition for repetition time. So it defines the length of relaxation period. That's what. By measuring this repetition time, what are we going to measure? We are just going to measure the time taken for these for all these protons to get excited as well as to come to the stable position, to relax. So this time shows, this time gives which type of molecule it is, which type, whether is it a tissue or is it a fat or whether is it a water molecule. What is this echo time? Echo time, time between the RF excitation pulse and collection of signal. That is what. So when you apply an RF signal, they take time to get excited. So after they get excited, they'll start emitting the energy. So this time between excitation pulse and the time taken to collect signal is called echo time. That means the time between which we send energy and we receive some signal is called echo time. So usually the the repetition time TR determines the T1 contrast and TE determines T2 contrast. So T1 recovery, what is this T1 recovery? T1 recovery caused by exchange of energy from nuclei to their surroundings, environment or lattice, which is spin lattice relaxation. Spin lattice relaxation is usually as we have seen earlier, it is just the protons usually for obtaining the for minimizing the longitudinal magnetization, we push 50% of protons from low energy to high energy. So what happens here? After pushing them, the high energy protons are not stable. So once again they start to relax. So this is called spin lattice relaxation. So this is an exponential process, and the heat is evolved and an energy is evolved during this T1 recovery. So this is an exponential process, and by using this T1 recovery we can sense different types of tissues, because this exponential process has different rates for different tissues. So let's have T1 in fat as well as T1 in water. So in fat, T1 is very short. As we have seen earlier, fat molecules have carbon and hydrogen atoms which are tightly packed, so they are not stable. So due to van der Waals forces, they just try to come to the original position. So T1 is very fast, slow way. Sorry, T1 is very short. Means they are fast in recovery, and in water they are slow in recovery, and hence T1 is longer. So we can see a graph between repetition time and signal strength. So we have short T1, T1 and TR for fat, and it is for long for water molecules. So these are the different repetition times for different issues. So let's have a T1 weighted image here. Here we have a T1 weighted image, so which is a high signal from fat, and we have high signal coming on the fat and low signal from bone. So this is a T1 weighted image. So these are some images for T1, and let's go for contrast mechanism using T2 relaxation, which is spin-spin relaxation. What is the spin-spin energy transfer or relaxation? In this spin-spin energy transfer, we have used RF pulse to make them in phase coherence. So they start coming to their original phase. So they are not stable in that position. We have used some energy to push them to come to coherence, and they are not stable, but they remain for some time and come to their original position. This is T2 decay or T2 relaxation. So we can use these times to contrast between fat and different tissues. This is called T2 exponential process. So that's what we use the accentuation techniques from T1 as well as T2. So this is about magnetic resonance imaging, and let us see a video demonstration which perfectly demonstrates the MRI physics. For time being, I'll just speed up this. I'll just fastly explain this video. So nuclear magnetic resonance basic principles. So this is a magnet. So what are the basics? These are just frequency of different waves. We have radio frequency of high energy, high frequency, and this is the relation between just wavelength and frequency. Amplitude, definition, phase. These are actually in same phase, different phase, out of phase, and different frequency. Same phase but different frequency. So RF frequencies have same different frequencies and amplitudes. So this is basically, these are the pictures. This is called a voxel. So we have in each voxel we have different number of protons. So these are each initially randomly aligned, and after application of magnetic field they just align. This is the principle which absorbs. So we are just magnetizing this material which absorbs some magnetic balls. So this is the right hand thumb rule. So the direction of current and direction of magnetic field. Proton, we have proton. So nuclear magnetic resonance, proton is a positive charge, as it is as good as a planetary system. So the dipole moment along the direction of thumb. So usually human body has 60% of water, and fats and carbohydrates, usual fats and carbohydrates, these are fats, carbohydrates. So we have protons in random direction at magnetic moment 0, but after application of magnetic field we can align them in single direction. So some protons align, so this proton is of high energy and this is of low energy. So this is called Larmor precision. This is a Larmor precision relation. So the relation between magnetic field and frequency. So this is basically the initial thing. So let's consider all these protons at a single point for convenience. So low energy protons are high in number and high energy protons are low in number. So this is the net longitudinal magnetization upwards because dominant number of protons upwards. So this is for 1 Tesla and 42.58 megahertz. So we are just applying a radio frequency to push 50% of protons downward, hence net magnet longitudinal magnetization is 0. And then we are applying a sinusoidal wave. See here, we are applying a sinusoidal wave to push them to the same phase. All usually they are in initially they are in different phase, and we are using the sinusoidal frequency to push them to same phase, and hence we can obtain a transverse magnetization. This is called net transverse magnetization. So this is the Larmor frequency. So this is the basic principle of operation. So this we have net. So in this position, at resonant frequency, this protons starts emitting energy. So this is the emitted energy due to transverse magnetization. But that energy doesn't exist for a long time. They'll start relaxing. This is called T2 relaxation or spin relaxation. So during this relaxation, we'll have some heat dissipation. This is T1 relaxation, spin lattice relaxation. That means the protons which we have pushed downwards starts aligning to the same position upwards. This is called spin lattice relaxation. So we apply 90 degrees pulse to obtain transverse magnetization. So this is energy emitted. We have energy emitting here. See, we can see energy emitting, and during relaxation we'll observe some heat dissipating. So how do you accentuate the differences between tissues as well as fats based on repetition time and echo time? This is echo time, pulse sequence. So these are water molecules which are loosely packed and fat molecules which are tightly packed. So we have net equal magnetization, and we are applying the pulse. We can see a time diagram here. So this is a pulse applying time, and we have net transverse magnetization. And first we have T2 relaxation, spin relaxation, and we have spin lattice relaxation. But still they didn't relax. But in water molecules still they didn't relax. But they have undergone two types of relaxations. So when we start recording at this time, the first fat molecule, it's not emitting any energy, but we have energy emitting from these water molecules. So this shows a high, so whatever the energy recorded from water molecules is of high magnitude, which is appeared white in color, and there is no energy emitted, we observe the energy recorded from this as black in color. Hence we have a black and white image. See the white image for energy emitted, then there is a black image for no energy emitted. So this is T2 accentuation between fat and water molecules. So it usually have long repetition time and longer echo time. So let's go for T1 relaxation. So this is T1 relaxation, spin lattice relaxation. So they just hold on the energy, didn't relax. And once again when we apply our radio frequency pulse, what happens is initially in this water molecule there are equal number of protons aligned upwards and downwards, but Now as they didn't relax, and once again as we apply the energy, protons dominate, and a more number of protons starts moving downward and less number of protons upward. Hence we can see a net longitudinal magnetization downward, and we have decreased transverse magnetization in this direction. So what happened here? Here we have high transverse magnetization, and here we have low transverse magnetization. Hence, a T1 image, T1 weighted image records inverse as that of T2 image. In T2 image, we had water molecules white in color and here black in color, but here it is just converse relation. So here we are getting low energy and we are getting high energy. So a T1 weighted image, in a T1 weighted image we have water molecules black in color and fat molecules white in color. So we have short echo time and short repetition time. This is how we understand the T1 effect and T2 effects. So in T1 we need to apply rapid RF pulses because of short repetition time. And T2 effects, we have long repetition time as well as long echo time. Wait for the echo. So these are for T2 weighted image, characteristics of T2 weighted image, and these are for T1 weighted image, short TR, short echo time, and we have proton density image, which is usually of long repetition time and short echo time. So these are usually used to detect the tumors in human body. So just send the human body into the machine, and so these we can usually have we have a tumor in his body, and these are some recorded pictures. This is a voxel. So these are just some illustrations. This is not required. So let's consider the magnets. So we have z-axis, we have y-axis, and we have x-axis, and we have a varying gradient along the z direction, and we are sending a radio frequency pulse, and we are considering a particular slice in the human body, and we can control. Usually the pulse, sorry, the phase and frequency are the same. When applying a gradient, they start differing. So we have applied a gradient along y direction. So these are of high frequency, and these are in the middle they are of low frequency. And this is the gradient along x direction. So high frequency, and there is even phase shift. So we can, by these gradients, we can encode the phase as well as frequency. So each voxel emitting different energy. That just encode. This is the final encoded image. So thank you.